from the Forage Crops for Oregon Coast Counties that was put out by the Oregon Agricultural College Experiment Station in May of 1924. And so this whole thing is about raising crops for basically feeding cows because dairying is so important. And I thought Dirk would probably appreciate this. In 1924, there were 5,476 dairy cattle in Clatsop County. So we were smaller than Tillamook by about a third at that point in time. But
we were a third as much of them? Or
yeah, about a third as much of them. And the summary was that dairying needs more legume hay. So all the way through this whole thing is really fun. They did all of these experiments at the Astoria station of different kinds of things, Timothy and clover and alfalfa and all of this. And what they came up with after they did all of this is that, you guys are gonna laugh, the best silage to be grown on the North Oregon coast is Tangier peas and Shadeland Climax oats at 11.9 tons per acre. So
for the people or the cows?
The cows.
Okay.
The cows. I've never heard of
oats and peas.
oats and peas for cows. We never heard of such a thing. So they talk about, it's hard to grow corn and things like that, but and the variety, they went through a whole bunch of different varieties, and it was Tangier peas and Shadeland Climax oats. And then they go in and they talk about clovers and vetch and everything else. And then towards the end, they said it's interesting because people down here still use root crops, which apparently wasn't all of that common, but they still are here. So they did another experiment of root crops, and they did, this one was, what was this one? Turnips, and then mangels, which we read about in the journal about the mangels, and how many tons per acre that you would get with different things. And it turns out, if you guys are interested in growing mangels, that you need to get prize winner, because you get many, many more tons per acre with prize winner than you do with any of the other types of mangels.
Do people still grow mangels?
In New Zealand, they do what she just described.
Yeah.
We grew some, and it's a beet. It's a forage beet, and they're big. But what I found is that it's very difficult. We don't have the equipment to harvest them, and they need to be chopped to make them easier for the cows to eat, because they can choke on big things. And I can't get in my field to harvest now anyways, but they grew great. We planted them this year, and I mean the tops are wonderful. I like the tops as well. The beets are huge. We got wonderful production, but other than going out there with a boat or a wheelbarrow, I can't get a tractor in the field. I certainly can't harvest at this time of year. And I believe that they were harvesting all winter long.
We had heard people would plant like the mangels and the turnips, and then the cows in the wintertime, in the fields that they were grazing in, and then they would go out and they would kind of hit them with their hooves.
Well, they talk in the diary. They talk about harvesting the mangels and chopping the mangels, and bringing them in, and then feeding.
But this is like the cows kind of does it themselves. And we have a friend in Tillamook, and he's grown turnips.
Yeah,
and he has them out there, and they root around and munch them
it's
up.
common like in deer plantings and stuff. But peas are great, and they're very high protein. When we take down like the Brownsmead peas and stuff, we'll feed the tops to the cows, and they love them, and they're real. It's a really good feed for them, as are sweet potato vines.
Yeah. So it stops with silage is desirable on dairy farms to furnish a cheap source of succulents for summer and winter feed. It reduces the amount of hay required by about 40% if the cow is in better condition than when roots are fed alone. And it says corn is a standard silage crop of the United States. However, unless you can get a yield of 10 tons or more per acre, it is not as advantageous, and so you should grow other crops, and probably the best for the coast would be a silage crop of peas and oats.
Okay.
So I thought it was interesting that OAC became OSU, the Oregon Agricultural College. They just did a forage trial at Teresa's Jackson Road property, and they planted 16 different potential forages for coastal climates, but they did not look at oats or peas. They did planting.
I know.
They did birds with trefoil, they did, different things, but they didn't do either one of those. So I don't know if they even tapped into that as part of the research.
Well, and I think it's funny because this was published before even growing peas down here for people became popular, because that was like in the 30s, late 20s, early 30s.
Late 20s and early 30s.
Yeah, so I thought that was kind of interesting that that's what they came up with. So
Well, when I was in graduate school, I went to grad school at the University of Maine, and Aroostook County, Maine is way north, and they're known for the potatoes. And they grow potatoes, and they grow potatoes, and they grow potatoes, and that's about all they grow. And it's really hard on the soil. Potatoes are heavy, heavy feeders. So we were looking at ways to do rotation crops for Maine, where it's very cold. And the rotation we came up with was oats, peas, potatoes, and broccoli.
Oh,
Throw broccoli in there for a year, because you could harvest broccoli in Maine and you could have it on the grocery store shelves in Boston within 24 hours. Or you could harvest it in California and ship it cross country in a truck.
let's see,
Which-
wait.
So
Yeah.
that was the rotation, and that was 1990 that we came up
Right.
with oats and peas and.
Yeah.
so now I'm going to be bugging Scott to try some oats and peas for our cows.
I don't have a chopper though. Gotta get a chopper.
For oats and peas?
Yeah, we gotta harvest them
Well,
somehow.
for silage, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.